Hey guys, my name is Chantel. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for hanging out with me today. So we are going to talk about episode 2 of Idolish7 Third Beat. So this week we still don't have an opening, which I thought was a little weird because by episode 2 we usually have an opening. So I'm wondering if we'll probably get an opening next week. Hopefully, but we'll see. But either way, I'm still excited to see the OP whenever they decide to put it in the episode. I guess there's just so much stuff that they needed to put in this episode that the OP just couldn't fit in there. At least that's my guess, but who knows? We just kind of have to be patient and just wait for the OP. Anywho, besides the opening, let's go ahead and talk about Mezzo and Rivale, because that's where we start off this episode. So basically, Rivale finds out that Bandri is the new manager for Mezzo, and of course the boys are very much excited, especially Momo. I love Momo's reactions to seeing Bandri being the manager. I'm pretty sure they're really excited to see more of Bandri, you know, like I said, because if anything, I feel like we get to see more of a playful side of Bandri, which is really nice to see because we really don't see a lot of Bandri. So hopefully now that he's Mezzo's manager, we'll get to see more sides of Bandri, and I'm really excited for that. Moving on from that, let's go ahead and talk about Nagi, Mitsuki, and Yamato. So there's some awkward tension between the three because of what happened in the first episode, and Yamato obviously does not want to talk about what happened or discuss just anything about it, and Nagi is persistent as he always is, and he tries to get the bottom of the situation, which Mitsuki interrupts, and he's like, hey, leave him alone, don't push him to tell us his secrets. And Nagi basically says, you know, it's not that I want to know about the secret, I just don't like this awkward tension. It sucks. So here's the thing. Yamato then goes into like this weird breakfast metaphor thing, whatever you want to call it, where he basically says like there's a difference between how they eat their breakfast. Like he puts tea in his and he eats this with milk. And you know, when he was talking about this, I'm like, what does this have to do with the conversation? You know, I was really confused. So maybe somebody can like help me out with this. But like, you know, by the end of it, I was just kind of like, he, I guess, just wanted to avoid the conversation, because that's honestly the first thought that I had. But now thinking about it, I feel like there's probably a deeper meaning there. If anything, I feel like that conversation was more so to push a little distance between him and Nagi and tell him like, hey, you know, we're completely different, you'll never get what I'm going through, kind of thing. At least it's the kind of vibe at the end of the day that I get, but I could be completely wrong about that, which is why I relate to Nagi in that situation where he was like, what was he talking about? I don't understand. Which then, like I said, Yamato avoids the question and Nagi asks Mitsuki, hey, like, why didn't you say anything? Which Mitsuki replies to, well, he can come talk to us whenever and when he's ready. And Mitsuki also says, you know, he can relate to what Yamato is probably going through, that sometimes you just want to deal things, you know, by yourself and you don't want to ask for help. And Nagi then later talks about how if there's a side to Yamato that he doesn't want to show, then he's just suppressing himself, and how it's really unhealthy and how they will accept, you know, him, flaws and all. Which honestly, I was going to agree with Nagi until I heard Mitsuki say this, which he basically says that it's really hard to accept those parts of yourself that you don't like. So when Mitsuki says that, I understood Mitsuki's side of things and why he doesn't push Yamato to say anything, because he is right. It is hard to accept those parts of ourselves sometimes, and sometimes we gotta learn to accept those parts that we don't like first before we can let anyone else in. Because even if you do let somebody in, it's kind of meaningless if you don't accept those parts and don't seek the help that you need, because then it will be unhealthy and you'll just end up back to square one. It's kind of like how people say, you know, you gotta love yourself before you let somebody else love you, which leads me to believe that Yamato probably has a lot of stuff that he needs to figure out on his own first before he does let people in, but at the same time, as an audience, like looking at this, it's also very frustrating because it's like you just want to scream like, they're your friends, they want to be there for you, let them in, you know? So it's a frustrating situation overall. And since we're on the topic of Yamato, so it seems like this is affecting him a lot more than he would like to admit, to the point where he isn't doing so great in his movie. His acting seems to be a little bit off, and he's not getting the emotion that the director wants out of him. And he tries to give him a little bit of instructions, but he's also being kind of like not being clear, and later we get to see why. And it's all thanks to Yuki. So Yuki talks to the director and is like, hey, you know, you can be a little bit more direct and clear with Yamato. He's not gonna mind, like, he would actually appreciate that. To where the director is like, yeah, no, I can't do that because he is Shizuo's son. So, like, I could never tell him what to do. So just hearing that, I can already see just how much of a powerful or influential man Yamato's father is in the industry, at least in the acting industry, to the point where like the directors can't be honest with Yamato because of who his family is, which is unfortunate because it's kind of like, well, regardless of the fame or whatever, like, be honest with somebody, you know? Which the director also kind of brushes it off as like, he's got his dad, he's probably like helping him out and stuff. Which then Yuki is like, you know, he doesn't say anything, but he's just kind of looking away, and that's when the director's like, holy crap, you're kidding. They're not close. And Yuki's like, I'm not gonna say anything. So Yuki's definitely being careful what he says. And basically it's like, you know, none of his business. That's Yamato's business. So I feel like he probably feels like if anyone's gonna say something, it should be Yamato. It's a tough situation from what it looks like. And what really piqued my interest was when the director was like, oh, no wonder he didn't debut with Hoshika. The reason why it interested me, I was like, so he was scouted, or like somebody reached out to him to debut with them, but he said no. Considering how things are with Yamato and the way he's acting, it's understandable. And it's just kind of interesting how this season we're learning a little bit more about Yamato and his situation, especially because they've been hinting at Yamato's past since season 1. And I feel like Nagi also like knows who Yamato really is, because, you know, has been confrontations again ever since season 1 between Yamato and Nagi, where Nagi's like, hey, like, what's this about? Or like, take off your glasses. And Yamato always avoids it. So again, I feel like this is no surprise with everything that's going on with Yamato, because again, it's been building up since season 1. It's just now we're getting to the good stuff, I guess. I don't know how I can really describe it, but we're basically here with all this drama, and just, it looks all so complicated just hearing these characters talk about the situation, and it's kind of like we're still being left in the dark, and like the more the episodes go on, the more we learn, and the more I feel like I'm starting to understand Yamato a little bit more. Interestingly enough, the director also mentions how Yuki does his things like his own way, and how he's a loner. And I love that Yuki was like, I'm not a loner, I have like Momo. He's my partner. And I'm like, oh, he's a partner. Like, I don't know. I was just geeking out. Like, it just made me happy to hear Yuki call him his partner. And especially after everything that happened in season 2. He obviously loves Momo a lot. But the director says that how Yuki's like a river. He can't stick with one person, and nobody can stay with him forever. And if the river does become like cloudy, then the people that love him will leave him willingly. And I'm like, oh, crap, what does this gotta do with Yuki? What does this mean? Because every little thing in Idolish7 has a meaning behind it, which worries me so much, because all I can think about was like, oh crap, is Momo gonna try to leave Yuki? Or I don't know, like, I don't know, it just kind of worries me a little bit. Maybe I'm just thinking about it too much. Which then the director actually says that Yuki's a lot similar to Shizuo-san, and how he believes that's probably why Shizuo-san wasn't suited for the family life. And I'm like, ooh. And when he said about the family life, it reminded me of that story that Nagi said back in season 1, how there was like this famous actor who fell in love with somebody and then left the person and their kid. And I forgot how the rest of the story he explained it, but while that was happening, I remember Yamato being there, and just the focus that while the story was happening, the way that the anime just focuses on Yamato's face, I was like, okay, they're definitely hinting that this is something connected to Yamato, which just confirms it even more when I'm hearing the director talk about Shizo-san and Yamato and the situation and how Shizo-san again wasn't suited for the family life, which makes me believe, and I've said this before, that's probably why Yamato is seeking revenge against his father, was probably because he feels like his dad abandoned his family for whatever reason, and it's just kind of like, oof, like if that's it, then it's gonna be messy and rough and complicated. But since we don't really have all the pieces of the story with Yamato's past just yet, I'm gonna hold off my thoughts regarding Yamato, because as someone who has divorced parents, I kind of am sympathizing with Yamato's feelings towards his father a little bit. Anyway, but that's not it with Yamato, so let's go ahead and talk about the scene with him and Minami. So Minami ends up talking to Yamato and is kind of being pretty shady the whole time he's talking to him. And again, it only just fuels my untrust for Minami. I really don't trust him, especially more so now with the way that he was talking to Yamato. It almost sounded like he was threatening Yamato to expose him and what he knows, because he basically goes up to Yamato and says, like, you know, he kind of hints at, oh, like, I know what's going on with you. And of course, Yamato's like, all right, then. How did you find out? And, you know, Minami comes up with an excuse that he's like, oh, well, I'm with Hoshikage, so obviously I'm gonna know. But it also reminds me of, like, again, episode 1 where Minami meets with Yuki, and the person that was there with Yuki too, and Minami was like, he knows about Hoshikage, so be nice. So it kind of leads me to believe, like, I don't think that's the whole truth that Minami is saying, that he knows because he is with Hoshikage. I feel like he found out through some other means, which, again, Minami later is like, well, I hope the tabloids don't break the news in some awkward way. And I'm like, oh, why are you threatening my boy Yamato? Like, I don't like this. Like, it was a really intense conversation, and it almost sounded like Minami was like warning him, like he knows that there's something gonna happen, and I don't like it. Like, just especially that Minami, it looks like he's getting a kick out of this. He's enjoying every minute of it. At least it sounds like it, especially which Yamato kind of tries to, like, talk back to him and tries to say something, you know, but Minami, I feel like his words end up winning over Yamato, because at the end of the day, Minami is like, well, it'd be a shame, you know, that Shizo's would be ruined, that he's like this perfect devoted husband, and the same could be said about Idolish7, like they're gonna be dragged through the mud because of this. And it's kind of like, what the hell? I just didn't like that he was also hinting like, you should leave Idolish7 before it's too late. It kind of hits Yamato, because you can see his reaction when Minami mentioned Idolish7, like Yamato kind of flinches a little bit. And, you know, with everything that happens in season 1, obviously Yamato really loves Idolish7. He loves his group members. They're like a family. So if anything were to happen to them because of him, I feel like it would eat away at him, and he would feel really guilty, because he would probably feel like he dragged them into his mess that he shouldn't have. Does that make sense? Hopefully it made sense. But anyway, let's switch off the talk from Yamato to Mitsuki. So Mitsuki ends up talking to Mr. Shimoka-san, and funny enough, Shimoka-san was like, oh, you know, Yamato is so lucky to have you guys as friends, especially with everything going on with the Chiba salon. Like, he's really lucky he has someone like you, Mitsuki. And Mitsuki was like, what are you talking about? And of course, Mitsuki's reaction gives it away, and Shimoka-san is like, don't tell me you don't know. Like, I thought you guys knew because you guys look like you were close. Like, my bad, like, forget I said anything. Which then puts, like, this seed of doubt in Mitsuki, to where he's questioning, are they close? And I'm like, ooh, like, this is not gonna end well. It's hard, because once you start doubting yourself and you have that doubt, you start questioning everything, and you start asking yourself, well, they haven't told me this. Why? Do they not trust me? And, you know, just start wondering all these other things. And honestly, I've had a friend that they never told me anything at all, and I felt like I didn't know anything about them or their life. And I always told them about my life and everything going on. And I started questioning, like, are we really friends? Because I feel like I'm the one that's communicating more than they are. Because, friendship is a two-way street. Like, you have to, both parties have to communicate and learn more about each other. Otherwise, everything is one-sided, and then you're gonna feel this way. And it also just makes you think, like, we're not really friends. We're more like acquaintances, I guess. Because once you start thinking that way, it's like, well, I guess they don't trust me enough, or I guess they just, I don't know. Like, it's a really hard situation because you don't want to push that friend, but at the same time, you also feel like you're being left in the dark, and you feel like you aren't really their friend, and you don't know what exactly to do because you want to help your friend and you want to get to know them, but you can't push them away, otherwise they'll run away from you. Anyway, it's just a really complicated situation overall. But I do hope that Yamato does end up talking to Mitsuki and reassures him in some way. Otherwise, things are going to be bad. But I don't know. I guess we'll see how Mitsuki handles things going forward with Yamato and see what happens there. Which, now let's go ahead and talk about the scene between Bandri and Tsumugi's dad. So Tsumugi's dad basically goes down like a memory lane, and he has like this picture that is with Tsumugi's mom and Yaotome, and he's kind of like reminiscing, and he was like, oh, we used to talk about like our hopes and dreams for the future and just his time when he worked at Tsukumo. And Bandri was kind of shocked to learn that. He was like, whoa, you worked for them? And he was like, yeah, but I left and didn't say some nice things. And he says that he left and said those things because he didn't agree with the way that they were handling things, with running their talents to the ground to the point where, there's nothing left out of them, and just squeezes like every little thing that they can out of the talents. And he just didn't like that and just treated them like expendables, as they say, basically like they were nothing, like they could be replaced at any second, which goes to show you just how much, Tsumugi's dad does care about his talents and just how much of a really good person he is on the inside. But we all knew that, right? Which leads into the talk about Yaotome and how he does have support from Tsukumo, but he does say that, if anything were to happen, President Yatome's hands would be tied because he basically has to do what Tsukumo says. Like, he cannot go against them because he's pretty much in debt to them. And we also learned that they assist other agencies, and it seems like Takanashi Productions isn't backed up by them, which kind of makes me relieved a little bit because of the way everything goes later in the episode. But yeah, it just kind of sucks, and it also has me worried because just the way that Takanashi is talking about Tsukumo, it doesn't look good. And Bandri does feel bad. He's like, well, that seems like a horrible place to be. Like, there's no room for hopes and dreams. Like, what are they gonna do? And I love that Takanashi says, there are hopes and dreams. At the end of the day, the fans are the ones that decide. No matter how big and powerful you are, if you don't have fans, then it's kind of meaningless. And he talks about Idolish7, how they have their fans and they're able to show their fans like the hopes and dreams that they have, and are showing them along their journey, and how their fans' eyes like shine when they see that, and how there's just no power in the world that can break that magic, which was a really sweet thing to say. But then it cuts to Ryo-san, and he basically almost kind of uses the same words that he used about magic that Takanashi used, but it just sounds really evil, very sinister, the way that Ryo talks about it. Which he says something like, let's show him the magic that is the beginning of the end. And I'm like, I don't like this. So obviously Ryo-san is starting something within the industry, and it's probably gonna end up shaking like the idol industry, or who knows, but I don't like it one bit, the way that things are going. And just using the word magic like that just shows you how different both companies are, between Takanashi Productions and Tsukumo. Like, they're just completely different, and just the way that they treat people and the way that they say things is completely different. It's like night and day. Like, even in the anime, like when we're with Takanashi, it seems very warm and bright, but when we switch over to Ryo, it's like dark and gray and just like a little bit hopeless and scary. Which, following Tsukumo Productions, Iori and Riku meet up with someone that is from that company, and it is like this, I'm assuming she's like an idol, her name is Hanamaki Sumire, and she looks really down. There's something wrong with her. And Riko does approach her and he's like, hey, like, what's going on? You look a little sad. And she's like, oh, I'm just, not sleeping well. And, my company is, working hard to promote me. But, they're kind of yelling at me and I don't know how to talk to them. And just the way that she's talking about her company, like she's trying to hide something. And you can tell she doesn't like being there. Like she seems really miserable and sad. And, they're really running her through the ground, and it's just really sad to see that, especially because I feel like her health should matter the most, but the fact that this company doesn't care about that says a lot, which again, Riko being the good boy that he is, he's like, you should switch over to our company. And then Iori's like, no, don't say that. Which he pulls him away and he's like, why did you say that? Like, that is a really delicate thing to say. And it could get us in big trouble, especially with Takanashi Productions. And Riko then replies with, well, they shouldn't be doing this to her. I don't like how they're treating her. And, Iori does agree. He's like, well, yeah, but, we can't really do anything. It's not our place. Yeah, it's a tough situation because I feel for Riko. I understand where he's coming from. Like, if you saw someone like that going through something like this, like, you want to do everything that you can to help them and make them feel better and just want the best for them. And once again, proves just how much of a sweet boy Riko is. Like, he's just the sweetest boy ever. Like, please never change, baby boy. Anyway, so as they're talking, Iori realizes that he forgot something, so he goes and looks for it, which the item that he was looking for, which is a notebook, Kujo has, and he's reading out loud, which basically sounds like little notes and plans that Iori has for Idolish7, which already Iori doesn't like this at all. And Kujo then says that Riko is a lot similar to 0 more than 10 is, which Iori does, is like, what are you trying to do with Riku? Like, stop it. Because it kind of makes him believe that he's trying to recruit Riku, but then he says, no, I'm not trying to do anything. Like, if I were to take Riku on, it would just make me sad. Which then he also says that Idolish7 will become bigger, but it's not gonna last long. Which, hearing Kujo say this, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, shut up. But which I'm actually glad that Iori kind of stands up for himself and his group, and he's like, no, Idolish7 is here to stay forever, and I won't let it go down without a fight, and I'm gonna protect everybody. Which Kujo says that it's kind of meaningless to hear that from Iori, especially because Iori doesn't know like the end result of all this. And it's just kind of like, what is Kujo going on about? He can say that, that Iori doesn't know the end result, but how does he know the end result too? Like, things could be different. Like, it's a different time, and Riku, as similar he can be to 0, he's not 0, so Idolish7 can create their own path and they can still shine as brightly and be there for years to come and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and talk about Momo and Ryo-san. So things are kind of not looking so great. Like, the whole conversation was really creepy. Like, Ryo-san just does not give me good vibes. It's just it gives me the chills. Just the way that the anime just paints Ryo and just shows him to us, the audience, is so creepy. And just the way that Ryo-san also says things is just like, oh, like, like, I would not want to interact with that dude at all. Like, if I saw him on the street, I would run the other way. He just spells danger all around, which Momo obviously does not want to be there because he gets to the point of the conversation. He's like, all right, tell me what you're gonna do. Why did you say that all 3 groups are gonna transferred to Tsukumo. Which then Ryo-san replies that he is the mastermind behind all this and that he is going to become the president of Tsukumo Productions. And he also mentions how Momo has already realized just how much of a smart and influential man he really is, that he is continuing to side with him and sided with him like instantly. So just hearing Ryo say that, it just kind of makes me think that Momo had like the right idea and like his instincts were like, okay, this man spells danger. I need to get ahead of things before he tries to do anything with us, with Rivale. At least that's what I think, because this is Momo we're talking about. He cares about Rivale, and he's seen Rivale go through a lot, with Bandri and Yuki and, things that happen in season 2. It's obvious that he would want to protect Rivale no matter what, and Yuki especially. Anyway, so Ryo basically tells a little bit of his plan to Momo and basically says that he will get Hoshikage to come with Tsukumo and then later get the other groups. And I love that Momo was like, you have nothing on Hoshikage, and then that's when Ryo butts in and is like, Chiba-san, I have somebody already looking into this, someone who's ready to basically release this, but I need something from you. He basically says, you know, I'm willing to protect Rivale, but you gotta make a deal with me first. And he basically says, get a confession from Yamato and bring it to me. And I'm like, oh no, because Momo, he was getting ready to leave before all this happened. He was like, no, I'm not having any of this. Like, I don't want nothing in your plan. But just the way that Ryo talks to Momo, and like he even yelled at him and was like, Momo, like, oh, like it did not sound good. And he is ready. He basically tries to threaten Momo with Rivale, like using Rivale against him. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And then I hate that Momo was like, what's your deal? And I'm like, no. Like, Momo, please, no. Like, this is just not a good look for Momo, and it makes me really sad and really scared for my boy Momo because he is such a good boy, and I know he will do anything to protect Yuki and Rivale, but this is not looking good, and I just know if he goes through with this deal, he's gonna regret it so much, and he's gonna feel so guilty to the point it's gonna eat him alive. Like, I am not ready to see that if this happens. Like, I don't want to see Momo suffer. I don't. I've already seen him suffer in season 2. I don't need my boy suffering anymore. Anyway, moving on to the last and final thing I want to talk about, which is the conversation between Iori and Yamato. So right off the bat, I love that Yamato is surrounded by light and Iori is surrounded by darkness. I really love the imagery there just because it kind of tells me, or like shows you, you know, Yamato is like in this light and he's keeping everyone else in the dark and at a distance. And I love that, you know, Yamato is like talking to him and you can barely see Iori, but you see Yamato very clearly. And Yamato basically says, you know, hey, like if I had something that could ruin Idolish7, like their image, what would you do? And Iori responds with, you need to make up your mind. You need to figure out if you're willing to hold on, because if you are, we're gonna fight this on. We're gonna be with you 100%. But if you're gonna chicken out and leave, then I will kick you out of the group, even if like the other members hate me. Which again, I really love how level-headed Iori is, to the point where he's willing to do anything for Idolish7. And I love that he basically isn't around the bush when it comes to Yamato. Like, he is straight to the point and is like, you know, you need to stop playing around and you need to stop hiding your feelings. Tell me how you're feeling and tell me what you want to do. We'll go from there. Which then surprised me when Yamato was saying that, how he has never wanted to hold on to something more in his life and he's ready. And he says that how much he's regretted since he auditioned his plan for revenge. And I'm like, ooh, because we've known that Yamato has been wanting to take revenge on something or someone. We just didn't know. We've known that since season 1. And he looked like from since season 1 he was determined. He's at a loss. He doesn't feel like this is right anymore. He doesn't want to go through with it. He doesn't feel like it's necessary anymore. Which to me also shows me just how much he's grown. And I think it's because of Idolish7, because of the experience he has with his members and how much he's grown to love each and every one of them. And again, they're just like a family, which is why I'm pretty sure he wants to protect them as well, and why he feels so guilty now, because he's like, I was stupid. What was I thinking? I'm pretty sure he probably thought that he wasn't going to be able to be attached to his members, or it was just going to be like a one and done thing. But now that things are different, he's like, well, crap. This isn't how I thought things were going to go. But I don't know. Poor Yamato, man. Like, I feel really, really bad for him, because you can tell, like, it is eating away at him and he just doesn't know what to do with this situation, and it sucks overall. But I'm just really hope Yamato is careful with who he trusts if he does open up to somebody, because Ryo is already trying to do something. Like, man, like, anyways, you guys, things look like they're gonna be even messier the next episode, but we'll see. But I'm really glad, because the next episode preview we see Toma, and I'm so excited because I really, really, really want to get to know this character. I feel like he's gonna end up being my favorite, but I don't know. I want to get to know him first before like I officially make him my favorite Zool member, but we'll see. The main reason why I really love him so far is because his voice actor is Subaru, so yeah. Anyways, and I really love Subaru-san. Like, he's great as a voice actor. But anyway, that's enough for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video overall. Let me know your thoughts about this episode. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts. And yeah, so I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy out there. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!